it's me, Karen Ashley. I'm Aisha, the Yellow Power Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and you're watching Action Activate.
It's me, Gazbot, and this is Action Activate. And if I am Gazbot, Gazboot, so it's whatever. Here he is.
It's me, the big doob.
I'm in my head trying to do it as straightforward as possible because for a while I would just not take it seriously and I'd mess up, and then I'd goof around with it. But then I'm like, well, let me just. When I try to do it normal, apparently it's still not normal. And now I'm in my head like I'm going to do this normal, and I can't.
It happens. Welcome to Action Activate, where we are reviewing Dino Fury Episode 7. Something about a pun of water or fish or some new leaf. There we go. Plant life.
Leaf, which I thought was a terrible. Okay, spoilers up front because we might go a little bit out of order with this one. As soon as I saw New Leaf, I thought, oh, someone turning over a new leaf. Void Knight is having trouble with Void Queen. This is the episode where he turns good. And essentially that's what happened. And I was like, I wish I didn't know the title of this episode. But,
initial thoughts.
It was a very interesting episode. And that doesn't mean quality. I wasn't bored. I was not bored, which is the biggest problem you could have. It was something. It was something.
So this episode, before reviewing this episode, we've had a good string of solid episodes, great episodes.
Last episode, arguably the best of the season.
Yeah, where stop playing that because you don't want to get flagged.
I'm not playing it. I'm showing images. Yeah, I keep getting copyright flags for showing clips without sound, with us talking over it, reduced size. So I'm going to do that less, but I can still skim throw forward and backward like this. I think to be safe.
So we've talked about how this season's great. You can definitely see the Netflix influence, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. This episode is a blatant reminder of episodes I don't like of Dino Fury.
There's a lot to not like.
Yeah.
There's a lot to not like. There's some I liked, and there's some that was so out there that I liked. Overall, I don't think that makes a great episode, but there are worse episodes for sure than this one.
Yes. So when
I would take this over any of the really annoying Ion episodes, for example.
Fair. So I was watching this episode, and before we jump into the timeline of it,
okay,
we see the first part and we see the second part, and I paused at what I felt was right about the 5-minute mark, where we had something happen at the beginning. Something happened right after that, and then I paused.
You don't want to get into the timeline, but I was going to skip ahead to 5 minutes. I'm not sure what you're setting up.
No. Just wait.
Okay,
just
waiting.
We're Tarantinoing it.
Okay.
So I got to where I thought it was roughly 5 minutes, and I paused. And I'm like, this is 5 minutes into the episode, and I already hate everything that's happening. I already kind of have a review score in my head.
Wow.
And two of the most egregious things I've complained about for this whole season happened in the first 5 minutes.
I'm trying to remember the timeline. I will say my first main negative thoughts, I don't think they came that early, but maybe I'm wrong. I will say, though, that there was a point in this episode by myself, out loud, I heard myself talking to the TV. Not but this is what came out, and I didn't hear it the first because it just sort of came out, I was like, what is happening? And I didn't hear it the first time, but 10 seconds later, I was like, what is happening? I must have said it 3 times, and then I kind of leaned into it. I was like, what is happening? What is happening? And there was a 2 or 3 minute stretch where I said that multiple times, and I still don't know the answer to the question.
Yeah. Right. Just so you guys know what we mean in context, right out of the gate, Void Queen doing her own thing. She gets a Sporix. She apparently knows what the Sporix does, or hopes she knows what it does, and goes, "Yeah, you look pretty good. Go kill
I have
people."
no issue with that whatsoever. That's forwarding the plot of her doing her own thing, and yeah,
I don't either.
okay.
That part's fine. I acknowledge this. We immediately see what the villain of the episode is. We know
Slime.
that she's, not a fan. She sees what his power is and goes, "Cool, go murder as many people as you can."
Right. Void Knight's like, yo, what are you doing? Why are you doing this without me? I thought we're gonna get out of here. And I want revenge. And he once again is like, I don't. And she's like, what were you out there doing? He's like, I wasn't intentionally trying to hurt people. I was trying to get you back, which lines up to what he was doing. It wasn't like a retcon. It's like, okay, yeah, he never was like, yeah, he always had his goal and he met his goal and he's done,
It gives you context where you don't realize he wasn't really hurting people until like you think back and you go, he didn't really do it except for like 2 different times that he took like hostages close to the Rangers to further getting Sporix.
Right. And you could even say that he was a villain. He was doing evil things. Maybe people could have got hurt, but there's a difference between I need this and I'm going to do what I have to do. And if people get hurt, that's unfortunate, but I don't want it to happen. Where she's like, let's hurt people. If there's a definite line crossed there. And he's like, I don't like that line.
So this part, fine. All villain stuff, I'm fine with.
Totally good.
Then we're right here.
Ollie talking to his mom. I'm fine with this.
Talking about science stuff.
Good way to bring her back.
Apparently somebody he really likes is coming back. We got smoothies.
Yep.
All right, cool beans. They're talking about random stuff.
How far are we in here? This is 2.5 minutes in. Okay, so far 2.5 minutes in, you're fine.
So here's the thing before Ollie talks to everybody. When we saw that Ollie was talking to his mom and something relevant to Ollie happened, I went, man, I really hope this isn't the Ollie's a jerk almost the whole episode kind of episode.
Which we've had too many of.
Yep.
Every Ranger gets one, but he's had hit like Ion. He's had more than
they both are just like the worst.
I still like Ollie better than Ion.
Yes, that's fair. Also, he's not a 6 Ranger. Also, he's not a Ranger from 65 million years ago.
Yes, well, that's yes.
Also, he's a huge jerk who has more redeeming qualities.
Yes, he seems more competent, and his flaws are more understandable. His
flaws are more, and we find out in this episode, his flaws are more kind of like ignored as opposed to just like there and he can't deal with them.
Yeah.
Like Ion's kind of a big dope. There's not really much he can do to fix that other than like not being a big dope. Whereas Ollie is a selfish jerk who sometimes chooses to be that.
Is he selfish? I mean, he thinks he knows it all and he thinks he's smart and better, but that's not the same as being selfish.
Well, he's selfish because in most of the cases that he has problems with the Rangers, it's because he needs to be the one that's right, or he needs to be the one to solve the problem by himself to prove kind of that he is how he thinks he is.
Fair enough. I don't know. I think we're getting into semantics of is that selfish or is that some other thing?
Boy, he was blatantly selfish with the whole malware like Mr. Wiz episode.
Yeah, I guess I don't think of selfish as his primary flaw, though. I think ego is his primary flaw. But
sure.
So here's the teacher who this probably isn't on purpose, but he's dressed exactly like the Matt Smith Doctor Who, right?
Pretty much. I had nothing to say other than like this is a very unique wardrobe choice.
I mean, it looks exactly like Matt Smith Doctor Who. I mean, it could be on purpose, or it could just be, oh, this is what a professor looks like. And the Matt Smith doctor was like intentionally lampooning the idea of a goofy professor.
Not a nutty professor, just a goofy professor.
Just goofy. Maybe zany.
There we go.
But so Ollie thinks they're best friends. He's like, hey, how you doing? And the doctor's kind of like, oh, hey, what's up? And there's Hunter Deno. What's her name? Her character's name?
Amelia,
thank you. Who's like, oh, I'm into this and everything. And then the professor's like, what's that piece of jewelry? And it turns out to be one of these magnetic, focus your energy, pseudoscience garbage kind of things. Now here's
I like how you say garbage, and then we're transitioning to, and then Ollie really says it's garbage, and that's how we know that he's the bad guy.
This is the thing. I have issues. There's like complexity here with how I feel about this, because they are doing another Ollie is a jerk episode, and he does have an ego problem.
And that is a great face for Ollie's a jerk.
That is a great face. But when it comes to like not listening to people and being a know-it-all and all bad, and he doesn't need to mock people to their face. But this is the thing she's wearing is the kind of thing that like people spend money on and it does nothing. It's proven that it does nothing, and it kind of takes advantage of people, and like they lose money, some in small ways like that, some in big ways. And I have a problem with that ethically. So as a friend, I think it is his duty to be like, hey, that doesn't really do anything. You're kind of like, he doesn't need to be a jerk about it, but it is a thing where like what he's saying about the wacky stuff she believes isn't necessarily wrong. He can just be nicer about it, you know, but like the professor's like, don't dismiss things out of hand. It's like, no, you can dismiss that out of hand. The magnet isn't aligning your spirit. That's not a thing, you know, it's provably fake, you know, you just spent money on. So I had a little bit of an issue with that, but nah.
Yeah, pretty much he goes, hey, Ollie, you're a big jerk.
Yeah, and nobody would work with me because I was so good. No. And he finds out, oh, they weren't good buddies. He just took pity on him, and you know, like
if he didn't work with him, no one would have.
right.
So,
I definitely had a teacher as a partner in school from time to time, not because I had a huge ego, but because I didn't have a lot of friends, or I was bad at gym, or whatever the thing was. And I never thought, hey, I'm so cool, the teacher must be friends with me. It was always like, oh, I guess I'm going with the teacher. I'm the one that didn't have a group, you know. Like,
what time marker are we on?
We are at 4:06.
Perfect.
Okay.
So yeah, Ollie's like, no, that can't be right. I'm definitely the best. And he's like, you're really not, though.
Yeah. And then he talks about how he's a good listener, and then doesn't listen to what she has to say. Oh, okay, here we go. This is at 5 minutes. Now, we've talked about how we haven't seen a lot of Jane and Jayborg this season, and what we have seen has been the good version of Jane and Jayborg.
Yes.
And we've seen a few where they cut to them and like kind of included them, but it wasn't that big a deal. And so my first thought was like, hopefully this is just another little throwaway. They happen to be there. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. So the way that they've been presented up until this point this season is they're core members in this world. They're in the background, but they have their importance. And every time we've seen them, it has meant something, and it hasn't been to pat the red time or make them look like bumbling idiots. The way that this was framed, I went, they're going to do a joke that's going to be god awful. And then
it was so
worse.
It was worse. I think it was the worst joke we've seen this entire series.
Second worst.
What was the worst?
The air conditioner heater.
This was worse, in my opinion. That was really bad. That was really bad, but this was worse.
I'll politely disagree, but they're both terrible.
I mean, it's degrees of how stinky is the poop, but
degrees? Temperature degrees?
Yeah. When I saw this, my first thought was, okay, there's this octopus missing. Hopefully she's not going to tie that into where they are, because I'm not a marine biologist, but I'm pretty sure octopi, an octopus cannot survive in a pool. It's not salt water, and it has chlorine. It might not kill it instantly, but I'm sure it would kill it. It cannot live in there. So if it escaped and it's been sighted by the pool, then I'm like, an octopus wouldn't. Why would an octopus be at this pool? How did it escape? How did it get across town to a pool? It was sighted, but nobody caught it. And I thought it was like one of those huge gymnasiums with like thousands of pools, but it's like one little small pool that if the octopus was. So already I'm like, this doesn't make sense. This can't be. Don't make this be a thing. Just on the surface level of it's a regular octopus. Makes no sense.
In what children's show context would this plot line make sense to you and you'd go, okay, I can believe that they are caring about this?
SpongeBob SquarePants.
Or Tom and Jerry. I'll even give you Tom and Jerry, where you have sentient animals that are into hijinks, Looney Tunes maybe, whatever. Not this.
No. But their plan, because they think the octopus is there, is to put a fish on a fishing line in the pool. Now, you can see there's a hook. And again, I am not a professional fisherman, but I've fished once or twice in my life. You use a hook. Hooks can pierce things like children's skin. You don't put them in a pool with children. All right, fine. But they're so certain that this is the way to catch it. Then they're just like, we're just going to sit back and wait. And we'll set up the phone to catch a video. Like, this is the whole plan. Just put a sardine on a hook. Again, all of this is dumb. All of this makes no sense. But at this point, I'm like, oh, this is a dumb Jane and Jayborg bit like we've seen before. Not exceptionally terrible. Just like, this doesn't make sense. It's Tom and Jerry, like you said.
Then they go, hey, you know what makes this even better? Let's be lazy and sit in this hot tub that is conveniently in the line of sight with what we're looking for.
I do like that they have matching swimsuits for some reason.
Yeah.
But again, even at this point, I was still okay with it. Like the only thing I wasn't okay with was like, oh, this is set up for something to be terrible. Now, I thought they might fall asleep. I thought, all the tropes that might happen. What I never thought would happen was we'd see a dial that I thought was a temperature dial, first of all.
As did I.
It's not. I'm going to have to let it play for half a second. We pan down to this little grate. What should happen? I got to do this as quick as I can so I don't get a copyright strike. A tentacle comes out. Now, it's terrible CGI. This is obviously American footage. It's a terrible, I wonder if they bought, I wonder if there was a octopus asset you could buy from a 3D site, because it's this weird cartoonish purple suction. It just looks, everything about it looks fake. Everything about it. Putting that aside, it was laying in wait in some drain that I guess didn't have chlorine in it, knowing that they were trying to get a picture of it or bring it back to the zoo. When he saw them go in there, he said, haha, I'm going to flip this switch, which I thought was going to make him go, oh, I'm so hot, I got to get out of here or fall asleep or something. But no, it turns on. Oh, it's so hard to not play.
Just don't play it. We'll explain it. Turns the dial, which apparently turns it into a giant cyclone typhoon.
I don't know if you've ever been in a hot tub. No hot tub in the world does this.
Also, terrible CGI.
Also terrible CGI. Them spinning around isn't that bad compared to a lot of other stuff. That's fine. That was a kind of funny face from J-Board.
The green screening is pretty awful.
Compared to that octopus, I don't have an issue with it.
I have more of an issue with this than the octopus.
Oh my gosh, really? You're nuts.
No. In terms of quality of effects.
Look at this octopus tentacle.
Again, bothers you as an animator more than it bothers me.
No. It's the design. The actual motion of it isn't that bad. It looks like a plastic toy of an octopus. Not.
I want to pause for a moment.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that we're arguing about is how terrible degrees
in
things
which
are
way
in this episode.
This is terrible. Yes. Okay. But so then he turns that on and takes that opportunity to either get in the pool or be on the ground with his tentacle looking like he's coming from the pool to get that little sardine or whatever it is. And it does show that he was in the pool. Oh no, then they go flying in the pool. Luckily, J-Borg is making some great faces through the scene. I got to give credit where credit.
Yeah, they did say, I'll give them one piece of credit. They said J-Borg can go in because she is waterproof.
Yes. Oh, I appreciate that. They totally. Yep.
Thanks.
Yes. Then back to the story, which was eclipsed also because it was so early in the episode. The whole rest of the episode, I kept thinking about this part.
Yes.
Oh wait, we skipped something. Did it happen here?
No, it's after that. It's after they all get turned.
Oh, it is? You sure?
It's after this part.
I don't think that's...
I think it might be. I think it's when everybody's running away or trying to run away.
Okay, but I know that they saw it. I know Jane saw it.
Stop playing things. You're stressing me out. Stop playing things. No one cares. It's awful. This is a terrible episode. I'm sorry. Just stop playing it. If this gets taken down from a copyright strike and people don't get to see my complaints, I'm going to be very upset. Just leave it. Just click.
Oh...
This episode's bad. Spoiler.
So he pours his slime in, which slows people down and turns them into trees. Now, I have a few things to say about that. It's weird. Why is a pumpkin turn? Whatever. Fine. I think the effects on this were actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And pretty horrifying.
Yeah.
One of the if I was a kid, this would terrify me.
Yeah.
It's because it's not poof, they're a tree. It's you see the animation, they're and as a kid, you don't think, oh, they could be turned back. And it makes me think that movie Troll 2 where people get turned into trees.
Yeah. I was thinking there's an episode to what you're saying of episodes of Power Rangers that are scarier than they should be.
Yeah.
I don't remember the full context, but you watched this more recently than I did, where it was in space, and somebody in the comments, if you know, please let us know, where there's these purple bad guys that infect people or that change people. And I remember as a kid, those freaking me out from in space, but most other stuff did not.
I don't remember that any better than you do. But
okay, well, if somebody knows what I'm talking about, let us know.
Oh yeah, and the little kid, especially the little kid, because adults getting it, but it's oh, even the kid, and then the dad's talk to me. That's pretty heavy stuff. I was like, wow. But of course, that's for Void Knight. You're oh, I've gone too far.
Yeah.
And they're this is terrible. And then they try to hit him, and he's I'm invincible. for some reason I'm a monster of the week, but I'm invincible. You can't.
By the way, yeah, I'm indestructible. You cannot beat me.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess we can't beat him. I really thought the other octopus part would
maybe it passed. So the octopus gets a cab.
Yeah, that is what pushed it right to the top for me. Right to the tippity top.
Not that she burned to death and froze within 10 seconds.
No, that was terrible. That is one of the worst. Might have been the worst previous to this.
If you here, we'll leave it up to you guys. If you feel strongly about one Jane and Jay Borg bit from this series being worse than the other, let us know in the comments which you think was
or
worse.
If you think we're both wrong and there's a worse one,
please
that we're
let
not
us
mentioning.
know.
But no, the taxi cab, because up to that point, it's ridiculous. It's like this super smart octopus, whatever. But it's like a whole nother layer of disbelief of it knows how to hail a cab. A cab would stop for it and pick it up. And like, it's just ridiculous. I'll also say, spoilers. My thought was, well, this absolutely has to tie back into the bigger plot because it has to do with water and he's poisoning the water supply. It's going to turn out that the octopus is was experimented on by, somebody and it was smart and it saved the day. I knew
it had nothing to do with anything.
And I can't decide which is worse because if it tied back in somehow and they explained that it was super smart, it's like, well, it's still dumb, but okay, they made it part of it. It needed to be in there and whatever. And they kind of explained it in the way. And but I also didn't want to see more of it. And I'm wondering if this is some sort of Easter egg to an episode like a while back that we forgot where they talked about,
or like a precursor for a future one,
or a precursor for a future thing. Because if this is just a one-off, it's so weird. It's
the dumbest.
But forgetting about how much I don't like it, it's just like it's such a bizarre choice because it's such a big swing. It's not just another, I got hit with a pie. It's like, we're going to have an octopus that's smart enough to take a cab. Yeah. Let's do that. Like, but have it not tie into anything else. The
easiest thing production wise that I feel like would have been better is they need to, like, for whatever reason, shoot a story there. They're like, oh, you know what? Let's go in the hot tub. I'm feeling a little tired. Let's go relax. Like, and then Jay Borg says something of like, oh, fun fact, like you shouldn't fall asleep in a hot tub because it relaxes your muscles. And then they fall asleep and then the monster come and, whatever.
They can't run away because their muscles are so relaxed or they get so sunburned. Like, same slapsticky kind of comedy, but in the realm of possibility.
And that would have cost significantly less and like it wouldn't have been egregious. And
like I said, they might have just bought this asset for like $1 off of some bucket where you could buy assets.
Why do you need a sentient octopus?
You don't. It's terrible. It's terrible. At least it wasn't an important episode where like the main villain turns good or anything.
Or we get a new Zord combination or,
So we go back to base. Ollie's being, a know-it-all. Amelia's like,
he's doing an experiment. Amelia's being helpful because she likes Ollie. He's being a huge
she's
jerk.
Also a Power Ranger that would help her teammate and cares about the people that are turned into wood, not just because she has a crush.
Here's the thing. Her having a crush is why she has more tolerance for Ollie and no one else is here trying to help him.
Maybe, but it also is a detriment because she's like, hey, I think it's boiling. He's like, I know it's supposed to, leave it alone. Other Rangers would have been like, no, dude, that's like gonna boil over. Like, yeah. And she's like,
he literally says, why don't you leave the science to the scientist?
Yeah. They went out of their way to make him be like a big jerk. Which again, so Solon.
Also, Solon's joke was great, and him being a jerk also solidified that no one deserves Solon.
What was her joke here, or at the end?
He's like, "Oh, do we have any more slides?" Yeah, at the park, but also in the storage shed.
Yes, that was a great joke. You're right.
Since her upgrade, she has like little things like this.
Yes. That reminds me. Off topic, but there is a cartoonist called Burke Breath. I might be pronouncing his name wrong. He does Balloon County, Bill the Cat, Opus, those guys. I saw him at a Comic-Con, one of the first ones he went to speaking, and he's like, I hadn't really done a lot of these, and I said, like, what should I do? Which I talk about. I'm an illustrator, not a speaker. And they said, oh, well, you should bring a slideshow, because that helps, and a lot of people do that. So he's like, so I have a bunch of slides. And he proceeded to show images of slides from various parks. And he's like, this is the one by my house. Here's one I've never been to, but I hear is nice. And he did that eventually he showed real art, but it was great. I was like, nice. I can't believe I've never seen somebody do this joke before. Like, it was really good.
It was a slow clap. So the interesting thing here is, I guess in Solon's half dinosaur, she got turned, but Jay Borg didn't.
Right. Because you notice her robot parts don't get turned.
Yeah.
Also,
So
people's hair
interesting
didn't get
tidbit.
turned. Things they were
Yeah,
holding
whatever.
didn't get turned. So he realizes he's a big jerk, and he's like, "Oh, please
All the
help
budget
me."
went to the octopus.
So what was going on? Oh, she's fanning Void Queen now. She's like, "Oh, you're my
Yeah.
queen. Whatever. I'm mucus." And
They're
everybody's
trying.
kind of fall. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're trying to come up with a plan of like, what's the most we can try to murder people?
Yes, and everyone falls in line because they're all evil monsters, and they're like, "Well, we follow the leader, and she's with Void Knight, so we just do whatever." And they don't seem to notice the tension between them because, whatever.
They're oblivious.
Yeah. And then he's like, "This is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this." And she's like, "Oh, why?" And he's like, "Look, I built this spaceship."
Yeah.
Which looks very weird.
Again, all the money went to the tentacle.
I was trying to figure out if it's like supposed to be built out of pieces of other ships from like Ranger history or something, or
It's
like
not.
because it does look very cobbled together, right? It doesn't look like oh, this is a ship you buy. It looks like this is a ship he built out of.
The reason it looks so weird is because they needed it for 2 shots. This shot
Right.
and the shot where she blows it up.
Yes, but I'm going to give credit here. I don't think it's a delightfully nice looking ship, but whoever created it, you would think the way to go is a very standard looking shuttle or a very standard looking rocket ship or whatever. It's unique.
Yes.
I was like, what am I looking at? And so it did its job there, that it did not look like so it's more effort than was needed, but it makes me think that it was supposed to be something that was cobbled together from pieces and like he was building it over time.
Yeah. Honestly, by this point in the episode, I didn't give any credit or assume anything positive whenever there were instances.
But again, this is still huge character development and plot development going on in the same episode where we just saw the octopus, which is just
it. Wait a minute. Wait, go back to Void Queen. Doesn't her head look like tentacles?
You might. You're going to get a preemptive ninja steal.
But like, why would she be an octopus at the museum? Or at the aquarium, rather?
I don't think she is the octopus. Maybe she can control. Well, no. Oh, that's even worse. That's even worse. Because if she can control octopi, if she controlled that octopus or was that octopus, that meant her plan was to make Jane and Jayborg look silly while she stole a fish and then caught a cab.
I'm really hoping it's an unintentional coincidence and not like actually tied to anything.
No, I was thinking that because even if it turns out, oh, she can control octopus or she could turn into an octopus, that would have been a horrible use of it. Unless they do something like, oh, my powers are growing and I had to test it out, so I tried it against those idiots to see if I could steal their fish, and then I got in a cab. There's a small part of me that wants that to be true. It might make it better. I mean, it's still stupid, but it's.
I wish I never noticed.
So anyway, he's like, we can't do this. And she actually zaps him and is like, okay, now we're fighting for real. And then we cut back and this is the other part I don't like. Excuse me. He has the spray and he's like, there's too much iron in it. Iron is a metal. He's like, how are we going to get out of here? And she's like, use my bracelet. He's like, I don't need my spirit realigned. There's a magnet in it. So the idea is that the magnet will pull the iron out. Now, I'm not a professional chemist, but I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. Like, you don't use a magnet. Like, it's just not how it works.
I would disagree because we've determined that if a standard community hot tub has enough centrifugal force to launch someone into a pool, then this chakra aligning magnet bracelet can pull iron from anything.
And I guess there are some kind of super future tech lines on the side of that beaker, which I didn't notice before, so that might help too.
I was 100% sarcastic in case no one like got that.
It just, and the thing is, if it pulled a little bit out, maybe, but they make it like go from this super pulverized mixed to like, oh, it's totally clear water with like big old chunks. Like what?
Then it looks like a rusty bracelet.
Yeah, and it goes back to that thing too, where like, oh, but and it sort of like proves her point that you have to have an open mind. But no. Even if it worked the way it's supposed to, she just happened to have a magnet on her. It had nothing to do with her believing.
Like it almost should be the opposite of like that whole plot point / like payoff should have been like her getting swindled, him trying to be the voice of reason, her saying no, and then like try your bracelet, prove me wrong, and then it's like, oh, it's just a magnet. I got swindled. Don't give your money to everybody and be so trusting all the time.
Right. Or like, well,
the more you know.
Yeah, it's not good for what they said it was, but at least it's still a magnet. Or yeah. But anyway, it works. Then we cut to this pumpkin. I forget what his real name is. They call him Squash something. Squash. Here,
Who
let me try.
cares?
Well, the only reason I care is because I didn't remember what his name was, and then they called him like Pumpkin Jerk or something like that, like as a insult. And I thought his name was Pumpkin Jerk, and I'm like, that's a funny name. Like, what a good name for a monster, Pumpkin Jerk. But then later they call him like Squash Bash or Squash something, and I'm like, oh, I guess he's a squash, but also that name isn't as fun as Pumpkin Jerk.
You know what else would have been cool? Just having Ivan Ooze come back. We already had Zed for an episode, and that didn't lead to anything. Just throw in some other little Mighty
You could have
Morphin
just been like,
thing.
people used to call me Ivan. Oh, all right. Do you notice Izzy and Zato wearing hats? This is not the first time. And
yeah, there's not really a reason for it.
No, there's not, and there's nothing wrong with people wearing hats. But I'm just like, I don't remember a lot of Rangers wearing hats. Like maybe a one-off scene or if they're going to recover, but just as part of their regular all the time. And Zato I know does because I've commented on certain things that were on the hat. And like, yeah, they're just, again, nothing wrong with this. It's just interesting. Like I don't feel like we see that a lot.
The only thing I can think of is maybe these were shot. No, because he has hair on the side, so that doesn't make any sense. I was gonna say like if these were shot out of order, and every time we see them with hats, it's like for some reason off screen they had to get a haircut that's inconsistent with everything else, so we're gonna cover it with a hat. But like, it doesn't seem to be.
I mean, that's possible, but again, that's never happened before. Like, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
So then they have their fight, and the fight is fine, regular good fight, nothing special, nothing horrible. But then once again, he's doing a good job of surviving everything. And Void Knight, she's like, "Have you learned your lesson?" He's like, "Yes, I've learned. I have to stop you." And that's like the full, oh, he's back from the dark side now, which is interesting. Like I don't want him to be 100% good guy now. I want him to kind of be like an anti-hero where he's like, yeah, I don't care about you and your stupid mission, and like I just don't want people to die. Like let's just not have people die.
I unleashed her, now I have to stop her.
Yeah, I can see that too.
He's going to say that phrase. This was a cool Zord combination that they literally were just like, here you go.
I disagree. I don't like this at all.
I love this.
The Tyrannosaurus with the wings and the other pieces flopping off it. I don't like it. I like the idea of a Tyrannosaurus with wings, but this looks like a Tyrannosaurus with pieces of plastic that is levitating.
Here's the thing that I like about this is that this is the first time we've seen them really lean into the Lego kind of theme of these Zords of like they're supposed to combine in weird ways and do things and supplement each other.
I will give you that. That is a good point, and I think as a figure on a shelf, this would work better because again, I like the idea of what it's supposed to be, but I don't want to play it. But when it moved, it just looked like a big chunk. Like it did.
No, it does. Like animation wise, it's very hard to watch.
That being said, when they turn into the robot mode, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, like I like I said, like I want to see more things like this where it's like we need to look for something. It's like, oh, what if the Pachysord fastball special the Stegozord and then the spike of it like did this thing and like we actually get utility from Zords.
I'm with you on that whole line of thinking, and I think if I had this toy, that would be a cool configuration on the shelf. I just didn't think it looked good in the show. That's fair.
Keep going.
Okay, so now they're fighting. Oh, Void Knight shows up and he's like, "You got to get him in the dark." That wasn't me. And they're like, "Oh, okay." Now, this Zord fight is ridiculous.
Yeah.
In a way that I enjoyed.
This Zord fight was ridiculous in a way I'd normally be more upset, but by this point, I just had nothing left in me.
We kind of had such weird, terrible badness, and then actual important character development, and then this crazy fight. And I felt like this crazy fight fit because it wasn't like awesome and dramatic and important, and it wasn't ridiculous and infuriating and stupid. It was sort of both and neither. So it was sort of a good way to end this episode in a weird way. And obviously it was just pure Sentai ridiculousness that they just were like, let's just do it. Let's just go.
I'm mostly with you with that, and I assume most of that was Sentai ridiculousness, but the thing that I didn't appreciate was them standing on clouds and then falling through clouds.
That was the best part.
That was the worst.
Because that was the point when I was like, oh, okay, so this is just ridiculousness. That's fine. It looks awesome. It makes zero sense. It looks awesome. I'm guessing it's a thing where the Pumpkin Jerk has these powers. He makes this storm, so he's like he could stand on it because he's like a storm master. And the Rangers have always had like magic / technology. We know this thing could fly. Maybe it's hovering. Who knows? Like, it doesn't make sense, but it's not as dumb as an octopus taking a taxi. It's within the realm of believability that somehow these things make sense in this world. And I'm okay with it because it looks crazy and unique, and we've never seen it. Well, maybe not never, but it's not something we usually see in a Zord fight. And anytime a Zord fight is unique, I like it.
One thing I didn't like was, and this may be blamed on using the Sentai footage, or it could have just been blamed on the Sentai being inconsistent. They're like, we need to get him in the dark, and he created the storm, so let's go fight him in there. And then it's the most well lit sky I've seen in like ever.
They were above the storm. That makes sense, actually, scientifically. Because
I would prefer it was dark. Like,
it doesn't go all the way up to space. You can fly above it.
I would prefer it was very dark.
It
He created a magical storm out of nowhere that blacked out the sky.
Right, and then he flew
You
up.
can't tell me that we're scientifically blah blah blah, and that's why they stood in the cloud. And it didn't make sense, and it did, and blah blah blah.
He wouldn't. Okay, fine. Forget science. He knows his weakness is darkness. He said it in an earlier scene. It's not like it was a secret that he didn't know. So he has the power to create this storm, to spread his slime or whatever. He's not going to stand in the dark part. He's going to be like, well, now that that's built, I'm going to go stand in the brightest spot there is, which makes sense for him as a monster with a weakness.
I guess.
The Rangers are like, well, we got to go fight him wherever he is. He's in the bright spot. And they go, let's knock him down to the darkness. That all made sense. Standing on the clouds, yeah. How did they do it? I don't know. But once we get there, strategically, from both of their points of view, it made perfect sense to me.
On the cloud, yes. In the cloud, the entire consistency changes, and it's totally fine now, guys.
Well, again, that goes back to them using some sort of power to be able to stand there, as opposed to, and then
them standing there, fine. Him standing there, you got to explain it.
Him standing there made more sense to me. He's the one that created it. Presumably, maybe he's making little ice shelves, or
here's the thing: if they fought him and he held his umbrella there, I wouldn't have had a problem. It's the fact that we found this magical umbrella that we've seen for the first time this episode right here.
That's Sentai footage problems, I think.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't mean I'm not upset about it.
Okay.
I love that pumpkin umbrella, by the way. I wish we saw it more.
It's pretty cute. I do also like this configuration with the Packy, like fists and the wings, like as the robot. I forget what they call it, the Ultra Zord, some Ultra Zord combination. This is very cool, and it's oddly like American. It's kind of red, white, and blue looking, which I don't think was on purpose.
Yeah.
But I can imagine like Captain America having this sword. Like.
Also, did not appreciate them calling it an Ultra Zord.
Because an Ultra Zord has to be every single Zord?
Because an Ultra Zord needs to be like a bunch of things, yes. And this to me was like, oh, you're like discrediting what a true Ultra Zord is by calling this an Ultra Zord. You have so many goofy names for things. Like, I don't know why you had to tack Ultra Zord onto this.
I can see why you'd say that. I guess I thought the Pterodactyl Zord was like its own full Megazord almost. So combining that with this and then a Pachysord, like that counted as an Ultra Sword. It doesn't. You have a point, but it doesn't bother me as much as you.
Here's the thing: if they said this was the Ultra Zord and then they released this combination as a Zord you could buy somewhere, I would get that. They don't have that, and they don't do that, so they can kick rocks.
Gotcha. Well, regarding the toy stuff, 100% agree. Regarding the naming conventions, let me just throw this out there. Going back to Mighty Morphin, Dragon Zord plus Dino Megazord standing on top of Titanus. That's an Ultra Zord. That's 3 Zords.
Yes.
This is 3 Zords.
This was an auxiliary Zord and 2 primary Zords.
Titanus is not an auxiliary Zord?
Not like a Pachysord is. It's a carrier.
Guess. Okay, but you see my point that it's not so defined as you'd like it to be.
Well, to your point, if it was Dragon Zord on Megazord, that wasn't called an Ultra Zord. They needed the big old MacGuffin giant Zord to come in.
You have a bit of a point, but that, especially in this episode, that's the last thing I'm worried about. I do like the fire and ice combo here.
I liked
Yeah, and even though they had the sword, which like used to always be a sword slash, and now they do the punch. I do. So I'm playing it.
He did like a jab with it, which was cool.
Did a jab, and they even had like ice show up on the blade, and so they had fire and ice in their hands. So they did. It's like they heard us, and like, well, we can't change the Sentai footage, and we have to use this sword because. Do they even sell this sword? I assume they do.
I think at some point they do.
Okay, because they have to sell that because of marketing. But they're like, well, we could put some effects on it to make it match a little better, and I appreciate that. So, and then he has that took me a second. For half a second, I thought that was the Megazord because the colors were similar, and then I realized it was him in the Terra armor catching the Sporex.
Big fan.
Yeah, very cool. And then, the kid wakes up and they're okay, and Jay wakes up and Jay Borg is like, "Oh, I missed you," and it was a nice little moment. And I do think the taxi thing came earlier because again, at that point, I was like, "Is this going to come back later where we see where the taxi drives up or whatever?" And then we get back here, and I don't remember what they're talking about at the end.
They're talking about Void Knight and whether to trust him or not.
Oh, yeah. And then here he comes. He's like, "Hey, Professor, I was a jerk. You're right, but I'm going to be better now." And he's like, "All right, cool. I forgive you. I'll never see you again." And he's like, "Good."
Pretty much. And then we see solidifying, yep, they like each other. And they need to be a couple by the end of the season.
Oh, there's an Easter egg that is in the background of this shot that I forgot to mention earlier.
Oh, on the quantum logic, what does it say?
I can't read the words, but then it says that. Let me see. Okay, hold on. I want to see if I can get a better shot. Okay, it's hard to read, but it says the future right here, right, and then it's SPD.
Oh,
so
that's
it's
cool.
Like, so I don't think that means SPD showing up, or but it's just like the future SPD, like a little Easter egg. I thought that was pretty cool.
Nice. But yeah, they like each other. He's gonna hopefully be less of a jerk, and he's still gonna be a jerk.
So, like I said, this episode was weird. It was interesting. I wasn't bored. It's hard for me to call it a bad episode because there were that octopus 2 or 3 minutes was horrible. Some of the worst I had ever seen. Literally saying, "What is happening?" to the screen by myself. But all the Void Knight stuff was good. And the Megazord and the regular the fighting, the people fighting was fine. The Ollie stuff wasn't my favorite, but again, we've seen worse in that sort of arena. And the crazy Megazord fight at the end was just like, yeah, it's kind of crazy, kind of didn't make sense, but in a way that I can forgive in a Sentai Power Rangers universe, and was entertaining. So that's why I said this is an interesting episode. Like, it's hard for me to know how to feel about it. I was excited to talk about it because there was so much stuff.
The more that we talked about it, the more that I am giving this episode a D.
I can't give it a grade that low. To me, the biggest, I hate to use this term, but the biggest sin is to be boring. Boring is worse than anything. Bad that's funny is better than boring.
But this bad wasn't funny.
Yeah. No. So bad it's good. So bad it's good was like the Zord battle at the end. I thought was entertaining.
Okay.
The actual and the bad octopus stuff. I wasn't laughing at those jokes, but it was like, what is happening? And I knew I would have fun talking to you about it.
This was no Tommy Tuba.
I think that was worse. That episode was definitely worse.
I think, to your point, that episode was so terrible that it was like so off the rails. This one was like still wobbly
to a ranger. Like, we kept arguing. I was trying to defend him, but it was like, this is a ranger not behaving the way a ranger should, blah, blah, blah. This was side character, so it didn't matter as much. I was entertained. That's the thing I keep coming back to. I was entertained the entire time.
I was not.
It forwarded the plot. It had interesting Zord stuff. It had horrible octopus joke, but that was like 3 minutes of the whole episode. It had the really creepy tree stuff. That was weird. It was such a different episode. I give it credit because so many things that happened in this haven't happened in this season and often doesn't happen in Power Rangers at all. So I kind of give it credit just for being so weird and different. But it is bad too in ways. So I'm gonna give it a C. I'll give it a C. I'll give it a C. I was almost gonna go C plus, but
to me, the other thing that dropped it below the C minus mark was where we're getting this. This is season 2, episode 7, and this felt like season 1, episode 6.
No, I still think there were a lot worse episodes of this than this in season 1. There were episodes.
Yes, that's my whole point.
Worse than
progressed.
This. Worse than this.
Yes, but that's fine. We've grown from there, and they've shown us that they can make a good episode consistently. And this regressed, and I think, hopefully, knock on wood, it's a flash in the pan.
I guess I feel like you're judging this episode against season 2, and I'm judging this episode against every episode we've seen so far. I think that's the difference.
To me, at this point, you shouldn't have episodes like this. This was
If
Like
we laid
this
out,
was safe in what it did. It was too formulaic,
it was
and
not formulaic. It was the opposite of formulaic. That was my whole point. I'm not saying it's good, but it was not formulaic.
Let me lay out the formula for you. Villain has plan. Cut to Rangers. We find out which Ranger is going to be the I learned my lesson by the end of the episode thing.
Right.
Comedic relief comes in, does egregious, over the top, unrealistic thing. Main part of the plot happens where the bad guys have an upper hand, good guys have to figure it out. Ranger still furthers themselves down the I am a jerk this episode rabbit hole, fighting, Zord, resolution, hunky dory.
The bones of it are that, but you're forgetting Void Knight and Void Queen going from is this a problem to this is a problem to they're effectively at war and she stranded him on Earth. That all happened this episode. That's a lot. Then also keep in mind the whole crazy ending that yes, it was a Zord battle. We always see a Zord battle. That was not formulaic. That is not the Zord battle you normally see. You even said they had the Tyrannosaurus with the pterodactyl stuff. Like that was not formulaic.
But that's what I'm saying is the things that you're talking about were so minute in like time in this episode.
That's perception. The octopus thing was 3 minutes in a 24 minute episode.
I know. I'm not saying that was the worst. That was the worst part of the episode, but I'm not saying I gave it a D because of only that part.
All right, I'm going up to C plus.
I don't care.
This. It wasn't as bad. Well, again, I think if you're talking like we're just judging it differently because you're judging it against where we are in the show in the season, and I'm judging it against if I have all the episodes that have come out so far on a wall. This isn't going to be even close to the worst one in my mind. Like if I like, which ones do I have to watch again?
Here's the easiest way I can make an analogy for you. If I grabbed a random piece of art that you drew when you were 14, and you said, I drew this today, and I judged it based on all of the art you've done, I would go, this is bad compared to where you are now.
I think a better analogy would be a piece of art I drew a year to a year and a half ago to where I am now.
But you see what I'm saying? To me, it felt that way because we've had such good episodes these last couple, and this one was so much worse. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
I don't think it's as bad as you think it is. If you if you excise the Jayborg Jane octopus thing, I don't have that much of a problem. The Ollie thing is a little bit not great, but the rest of it I have no problem with it at all.
To me, we're past the point of needing to make the Rangers look bad for them to grow and just showing them grow positively.
I agree with that, but that's a minor complaint, not a major complaint in my mind.
To me, like
because the ones I hate the most are the ones where nothing matters. If you could watch a whole episode and by the end of it, if you didn't watch that, you would not have missed anything. Those are the ones that I like the least. The true filler. Lots of meaningful stuff happened in this episode. So that accounts for a lot.
But that's the same thing we were saying with the finale where obviously stuff happened that mattered, but at the end of the day, everything got resolved and it was hunky-dory again, and nothing really mattered.
Didn't get resolved because Void Knight's out there, not with Void Queen. His ship's gone. What's she going to do with them? What's her plan? You know, like, so it isn't resolved at all.
But that's what a show is, obviously. But I'm saying that, to me, the ways of making this episode better were very simple and focus on the good things and not the bad things. And they didn't do that.
If they got rid of the octopus gag and they did the Ollie thing a little bit better, it would have been a great episode. Well,
yes, if they got rid of the octopus gag and switched the focus from, like, let's say, I'm making up numbers, let's say 7 minutes were dedicated to Ollie and 3 minutes were dedicated to Void Queen. If they flip-flop those, it would have been infinitely better.
I agree, and I guess I'm also preemptively forgiving it because I feel like the next episode is going to be like the Void Queen show. Like we're going to see what she's doing now and like how she's running things. Maybe not. I don't know. This is why we don't. This is why for those of you that are like, this stuff came out months ago. It's like this is why we don't watch them all at once and then go back because it's more fun to like be like what's going to happen. And if we watch the whole season, we couldn't have these conversations.
Exactly.
But yeah,
I'm holding the show to a higher standard, and that's why my grade is so harsh for this one. I expected more.
I did not. Yeah. I was shocked by the octopus gag. The rest of it I was fine with, but I was shocked by the octopus gag. Like shocked, like speaking out loud by myself, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Switching gears,
Yes.
There was a Power Rangers event today.
Oh, we're not going to talk about that here.
What?
We're not going to talk about that on this episode.
Why?
This is a review episode that somebody can watch at any time.
So?
Before the show, we started talking about Power Ranger toys and the event. And I said, well, let's stop talking about this. Let's do the review episode. Then if we have time and energy, we'll record another little one where we talk about the toys.
I thought it was all one nacho. I didn't think we were breaking.
No, because again, what we used to do is put news and stuff at the beginning or end of these review episodes. And then it's like, oh, somebody that watches it a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, is like, who cares what the news was back then? So I've tried to move away from that. So if we wanted to do that, it should be its own separate little nacho, as you say.
Yeah. Well, it's up to you. I'm fine talking about it here. If you'd prefer it separate, then we can do that as well.
So let's end.
Oh, one thing that is relevant to this. We're recording this on April 12th. If you haven't watched already, tonight, Power Rangers Shattered Past Episode 5 is premiering on YouTube, so go check it out.
I didn't realize that came out today.
I thought it came out earlier, and then I kept looking like,
no, there was a trailer that came out. I know that.
Yeah, but no, it's premiering tonight.
Okay, well, there you go. Perfect. But if you have an opinion on like us talking about current events, relative news, things in these review episodes, let us know, especially if you're someone that watches these after the fact, because I've been getting comments on like our SPD episodes, and I'm sure they don't care about whatever the news of the day was back then. But if you have an opinion on that, let us know below. We're going to end now, and maybe there'll be a toy video. Until then, I've been Gazbot.
Still Big Dog.
And
to the power.
To the power. Here's the credits.
Oh yeah, I forgot we did 2 credits last week.
Yeah. I don't know why people think I mess things up.
That was funny.
I love the moment where I'm like, why is he bringing up the toy stuff? I'm like, don't talk about that now. And you're like, what? What? And I'm like, he thinks that we said we were going to talk about that now.
Yeah, it's true. Like I said, I thought we were on the we'll do it live kind of deal.
No, I mean, we are doing a live something like that, but oh my God, we're also at 52 minutes. You also thought this would be a short episode. I knew it wouldn't be.
It's because we argued.
All right, bye.